This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. My name's Rob McConnell. We're coming to you around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media networks, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And don't forget, you can now listen to us on your telephone by dialing 213-401-0080. My guest this hour is no stranger to the X-Zone. Matt Stein is our guest. His websites are www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. And over the past couple of weeks, all the disasters that we've been seeing on TV, that mega mudslide, the wildfires and everything else. There's only one name that comes to mind whenever I see anything like this. Now it's Matt Stein, because he's been on the show many a times. We've talked to Matt about emergency preparedness, when disaster strikes, when technology fails. And Matt, first of all, thanks very much for taking time out of your busy time to join us here on the X-Zone. And what does it feel like, you being an expert in the topic of disasters and the failing of technology, when you see all this happening? Are there things that can be done to prevent or to limit the amount of damages that are being done by natural sources?
Well, certainly there's a lot that people can do depending on what their particular area has. I mean, no one can stop the hurricane. No one can stop the fire. But you can do things to minimize the damage in yourself and be ready to get out if you have to. So, for instance, I live in both wildfire and earthquake area. I live in Northern California in the Tahoe area. So I'm hoping that there's never a firestorm coming down that can't be stopped that rolls through my neighborhood.
Right.
But I have to be ready for that possibility. So I've got my car, and I've got a four-wheel drive truck, and I have a trailer. And naturally, if I've got time, I'd love to evacuate on that. But say there was an earthquake and the bridges went down in both directions, and there was a firestorm coming down, which if the earthquake happened in the summer would be most likely, because earthquakes knock over water heaters, they break gas lines, they cause electrical sparks, so fires start out. And if it takes down the bridges, then how are they local fire trucks going to get anywhere? And because we're surrounded by bridges and rivers, so you plan for the worst. There's the old Yankee saying that says, hope for the best, but plan for the worst, right? And it's like car insurance. Nobody buys insurance and says, I want to get in a head-on collision today. It's like,
exactly.
No, you buy that insurance and you pray and hope to God you never need to use it, but, say somebody's texting on their cell phone and goes through that stop sign and slams into you. Well, thank God you got insurance that you've got covered, and it's not as big a disaster as it could be. And preparing for things is like that. So, for instance, with the wildfires, well, I've got some articles like Beyond the Defensible Space, and what do you do when a fire is coming, approaching fire or extreme fire alert? What kinds of things do you do? And And all of this stuff is covered in great detail in my book, When Disaster Strikes. There's a whole chapter on fires, as there is a chapter on earthquakes, as there's a chapter on hurricanes and floods, and a chapter on tornadoes. So they give specific strategies both for preparing for and coping with, And so what do you do shortly before the fire or the hurricane or the earthquake? And obviously, you won't know shortly before the earthquake, but how do you prepare? And if you're stuck in the middle of one, what are your survival strategies? What's the best thing? And if you plan ahead, what's the best thing to plan ahead for? And, not everybody lives in the same location with the same group of disasters that might occur, but, I try to cover the bases of all the major stuff. And certainly all the emergency preparedness, having a good go bag, grab and run kit, being some self-sufficient items around the house, having like a little mini solar system. So if the grid's down for a while, boy, I tell you, a couple 100 watts of solar energy is not much it won't come near running your house. But when everything's down, it's a huge luxury. It runs a bunch of lights. It keeps your refrigerator going, your food from rotting, can run a radio, can, hook you up to the internet if the internet happens to be available,
right.
That kind of thing. It's just little things that don't make much difference in your daily life on a daily basis, make a huge difference when things are down. Those little things make all the difference in the world between relative comfort or extreme distress, or sometimes the difference between life and death. There's a whole variety of scenarios.
Matt, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our commercial. We'll be back in 2 minutes. X-Zone Nation, my very special guest this hour is our good friend Matt Stein. 2 websites, www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Matt Stein is our guest, www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Matt, you and I were discussing over the commercial break how dry it is where you are. You said that this is going to be the third driest of the seasons?
Yeah, we've had 3 dry years in a row.
Oh,
I mean,
my
2
gosh.
years ago, on the middle of January in Tahoe, up to 11,000 feet, it was brown. The mountains were brown, and then finally we got decent snow. And last year, a year and a half ago, it started out like with a bang, and then just like the faucet dried out the 1st of January, and it just didn't snow much the rest of the year. And then this year was just dry, like the whole year was super dry until finally the spring hasn't been too bad. But it's been, I mean, until March it was at like 20% of normal, like 1/5 of the normal amount of rain. I mean, just ridiculously low. So it's definitely an area where I'm going to do, as we get in more into the summer season, I'm going to have to be just super cautious and really have everything prepared. So I've done this before, but I've got to redo it. I'm going to take all my files, copy all my critical files, and send them off-site so that there's copies at like 1 or 2 locations in the country, like, Sister on the East Coast, that kind of thing. And definitely make sure that go bags, everything is set up, constant backups of computers, off-site file backups, just enough so that if I have to run out of here in a moment's notice and everything except for what I can throw into my car burns down, that I can put my life back together reasonably well. I mean, that's a scenario that I always preach and talk about, but you slack up when things are going just fine, and then something like this third year in a row comes in, and I know I just have to really make sure everything is doubled down and really tight, because there's a decent chance that a firestorm will blow through that they won't be able to stop and just take the whole subdivision out.
You know what you're doing. You know how to be safe. You know how to prepare for these type of emergencies. You know what to do when disaster strikes. You know what to do when technology fails. But when you get people who are not as conscious about their surroundings like you are, Matt, how do you prevent the human factor from causing a disaster? Like they're just apparently there's new video footage of the wildfires that were in California last week, and one of the fires has led investigators to believe that it was started by humans.
Right. You can't control that. I mean, you can't control that, and there's all kinds of things outside of your control. Mother Nature's not in your control, and humans aren't in your control. What is in your control is how prepared are you? Did you get those? Make your life in a box. And so if you want to take a good start, I mean, if you don't buy my books, at least go to whentechfails.com and click on articles. And there's totally free articles, grab and run kit, fire safety, there's earthquake safety. There's a whole bunch of, things like on medicines and herbs, alternative medicines and herbs you should have on hand in case the next superbug comes around and it's not responding to antibiotics, or maybe there's a disaster and you can't get a hold of antibiotics. So, start thinking and doing that stuff ahead of time. And my book, When Technology Fails, is really massive, and some people are kind of, it's just too big for them. So if you just want to focus on prepping and you want to start somewhere, then get the new book, When Disaster Strikes. That's basically a beautiful prepping and survival guide in one. So it's got a first aid manual in it, it's got a survival manual in it, and it's a prepping guide. And it's got some stuff on what alternative herbs and medicines you should have on hand in case, antibiotics aren't working.